Hello everyone, welcome back to a new session, and today we are going to start with the first chapter, which is Introduction to Life Processes for CBSE, and for ICSE students this is the chapter which deals with the topic photosynthesis. Okay, before I start with my class, let me remind you that we have physics, chemistry, mathematics and biology classes for classes 8, 9 and 10 CBSE. We have physics, chemistry, mathematics and biology classes for classes 8, 9 and 10 ICSE. We have master coding with Java classes, Python programming classes and physics and chemistry classes for Cambridge IGCSE. Please feel free to join now or in the future and do spread the word so that we can have more people with us. Let us start with some basic questions. What distinguishes something living from a non-living object? Very basic. Tell me, what are the ways in which you can distinguish between something living and non-living? Okay, I am writing down the points that are coming up: movement, growth, respiration, excretion. I am writing down all the points that are coming in the chat: reproduction, digestion, nutrition, molecular movement, circulation. Some of you have written response to stimuli, sense organs, etc. I am taking that together and writing nervous system. Ability to think also comes under the power of the brain, so that sensitivity also part of nervous system. Anything else? Growth, I think we have already written. Oh yes, very, very important. Thank you for pointing that out. Evolution, very, very important and one of my favorite topics. Evolution, that is changing from one form to the other. Anything else? Anything else? All right. Okay. I'll take that too. Death. Okay. So let us go through these points. These, you are saying, are characteristics of living organisms. Movement. First of all, when I say movement or locomotion, I mean moving certain parts of the body or completely changing your position. That is, if I am just standing here and writing, that is movement, but if I am going from here till here, that is changing my position, that is locomotion. Now movement and locomotion, if you take that as a characteristic of living organism, then some animals can move, cannot locomote, some animals can move and locomote, some animals or even plants cannot move or locomote, but they are also living. So although this is a characteristic of living being, this is not one characteristic by which you can describe a living being, right? So if I tell you that is movement a characteristic of a living being? Yes, of course, but is that one characteristic by which you can define a living creature? No. Next, growth. Again, feature which is seen in plants, animals, cells, unicellular organisms, all of them. So growth is definitely one of the characters of being alive, but then there are stunted growth seen in certain cases. Maybe it is a defect, maybe it is some kind of a disease where growth is stunted. So will you not call that part living or call that organism living? No. So then respiration, excretion, digestion, nutrition, circulation, all these are processes which are known as life processes which keeps a living organism alive. A living organism needs nourishment, that is food. A living organism needs to send that food to different parts of the body through circulation. A living organism needs to break down that food to liberate energy, respiration. Whatever is not utilized is thrown out of the body by the process of excretion. All these are known as life processes, and they definitely are characteristic features of living organisms. So a living organism does need nourishment, a living organism has to respire, a living organism has to excrete, carry out circulation, etc. Coming to now, for certain organisms, like in case of plants, you do not have a nervous system, but they are still living. Of course they are. There are certain animals also where nervous system is absent. For example, if you see sponges, porifera, nervous system is absent. They are still living. Okay. Plants do excrete. Yes, plants do excrete. I am talking about nervous system. Next, coming to reproduction. Reproduction again is a characteristic feature of living organisms, but can you say that reproduction is one character by which we can define life? No, because there are certain organisms who do not reproduce, who choose not to reproduce. may not reproduce, cannot reproduce, but still they are living. Okay. Then we have evolution, one of the main features of being alive. If you are a living organism and if you are passing on your gene to the next generation, you definitely are contributing your variations to form a new species. Okay. Death, the most sure thing in life, which is end of life, being alive by, sometimes a person can die to prove that he was living. And finally coming to molecular movement. Now what is molecular movement? Molecular movement basically is the, in your body, let's say you need some energy in your brain cells. Where do you get energy from? You get energy from glucose, right? Where is the glucose present? Glucose is present in your blood. Where did blood get glucose from? It got the glucose from your alimentary canal, or it got the glucose from your liver, where it was stored as glycogen. Where did this glycogen come from? Glycogen was formed when glucose was stored. Why was there excess glucose? Because you were eating a lot, so your blood was absorbing a lot of glucose from your food, but it didn't need it. So that glucose was stored as glycogen, and when later on your brain needs it, the glycogen is broken and goes to your brain. Think about this. In this reaction, you needed glucose first to be broken down in your carbohydrate first to be broken down in your alimentary canal. Number 2, you needed the glucose to go into your blood. Then you needed the glucose to go to your liver and then get converted into glycogen and get stored. Then you needed the glycogen to convert back into glucose, come back into blood, go to the brain cell, and inside the brain cell the glucose is broken down to release energy. So one molecule is moving from one part of your body to the other to help in performing a function, and that is the basic truth of life. If you are alive, that is, you are carrying out these: respiration, excretion, digestion, nutrition, circulation. You are basically allowing molecules to move from one part of your body to the other, which is known as molecular movement. And all these processes, respiration, excretion, digestion, nutrition, circulation, all these processes require molecules to move from one place to other. Think about it. Respiration, I just gave you an example. Circulation, obviously substances are moving all throughout your body. Excretion, the wastes need to move from your cell to your kidneys, and the kidneys will throw it out of your body. So for all these processes, molecules need to move. So if I have to define living beings by one characteristic which is present in all living beings, it would be molecular movement. As long as molecular movement is there, living beings will survive. Alright, is this part clear? So why therefore are molecular movements needed for life? I have a body where lot of organs and systems are working in an orderly manner. So the lung is working with the heart is working with the kidney is working, they are not fighting with each other. Lung does not say, no, I will not work with the heart. Let him go wherever he wants, I will work. No, not like that. So all the organs are working in coordination, right? What if one organ fails? Let's say the kidney fails to perform. What will happen? Urea will accumulate in your blood. That urea or ammonia that is accumulating in your blood will affect your heart. If the heart is impacted, the lung will get impacted. If the lung is impacted, then your blood, the body, the blood will not get enough oxygen. If enough oxygen is not given to different parts of your body, your brain cells will stop functioning. So you see, all these organs and systems and tissues that we have in our body, they all work in coordination. They maintain an order. But sometimes in case of a disease, in case of a difficult situation, stress and all that, this order may be broken. When you have a disease, this order is broken. And that is when you need your molecules to move from one place to other to go to that part where the order has been broken and restore that order. So if let's say there is a rupture in the skin and bacteria is entering through that rupture, that is order being broken. So you need all your red blood cells and white blood cells to go there, secrete histamine, this and that, lots of chemicals and all that, so that this place is healed, cells can divide, protein goes there, carbohydrate goes there, new cells are formed, this place is healed and the order is restored. So you need molecules to move from one place to the other so that the ordered nature of living structure is restored, right? So when the ordered nature is broken down, you need these molecules to run to that area where the order has been broken and restore it. 2, for repairing and maintaining. Sometimes there is no order that has been, there is no disease, there is nothing. Just simply you need to maintain your liver cells. The cells have to divide. So every 2 years the liver cells divides, right? So if the cell has to divide, the cell will need protein, it will need carbohydrate, it will need fat. So those molecules will have to go to the liver, right? There you need molecular movement. And since all these structures are made up of molecules, they must move molecules around all the time. So just think about it, your entire body is basically chemistry, and your entire working is basically physics. So when you are thinking about your entire body, your cells are made up of carbohydrate, protein, fat, different kinds of acids, minerals. So you have organic chemistry and inorganic chemistry making up your body. And then when I am moving my hands, this movement of my hand, these are livers, right? When I am talking, my vocal cord is vibrating and that is producing sound. So that is physics. So your working of your body is physics and chemistry, and your structure of your body is basically chemistry. So all these molecules will have to move so that this chemistry, this physics and everything works so that biology survives. Alright, so that is about molecular movement. So what are life processes? What do life processes represent? So life processes are basic processes needed by living organisms to maintain their life, and they are of 4 types: nutrition, respiration, transportation and excretion. So as I just said, that these are the 4 processes without which a living organism will not be able to survive. So that is why they are known as life processes. However, we do not consider reproduction as a life process, because without reproduction also organisms can easily survive. But without any of these 4 processes, organisms will not be able to survive. So let's see these processes one by one. Nutrition. What is nutrition? It is the process by which we procure nutrients in the sense carbohydrate, protein, fat, vitamins, minerals, water. These are nutrients for us. We procure this from the environment, whereas for plants they make their own nutrients, right? And in the form of food, we take it in the form of food, either take it or manufacture the food. So if you are a plant, this is the topic we are going to deal with in this chapter, that is photosynthesis. If you are a plant and you are carrying out photosynthesis, you are preparing your own food, then you are autotrophic. The word auto means self, and the word trophic comes from the word troph, meaning nourishment or feed or to feed. So autotrophic means someone who feeds himself or herself or itself. But I feed myself, but that does not mean I am autotrophic, because I am not preparing the food inside my body, right? You have to prepare the food inside your body to be autotrophic. For example, green plants and some bacteria. Heterotrophs are those who cannot prepare their own food, like us. We take food from outside, from other sources. We have to eat outside food, plants and animal sources to get our nourishment. But whatever it is, food provides us with protein, carbohydrate, fats, vitamins, minerals and water. These are basically all the nutrients that we need to survive. Next, coming to respiration. So what is respiration? It is the process of breakdown of food to obtain energy. So the glucose that you have taken, let's say you have glucose in your body, but that glucose does not give you energy. Now when you break down the bonds of glucose, what is glucose made up of? Glucose is made up of 6 atoms of carbon, 12 hydrogen and 6 atoms of oxygen. So when you break this down into carbon dioxide and water, this breakdown liberates energy, and this is the energy that you use for your daily activities. right? So respiration is the process by which you break down glucose. You can break down fat or protein also, but breaking down protein is not a good idea because protein makes up your cells. You do not want to lose your cells, so you do not break down protein until and unless you have no carbohydrate, no fat. You first break down carbohydrate. If you do not have carbohydrate, let's say some of us go on no carb diet. I'm not having carbohydrate for a month. If I don't have carbohydrate for 7 days, then my fat will be broken. Because whatever stored carbohydrate usually an organism has, it is used up within 7 days, 7 to 10 days. After that, your body will start breaking down fat. Now, although fat gives double the amount of energy in comparison to carbohydrate, breaking down fat is a very difficult process, much more complex than carbohydrate. So that is why first carbohydrate is broken down, then fat. Now, depending on how much fat you have stored, you can survive for a month or two, and then after that, even after that, if you are not eating, if a person is starving, then protein is broken down, and that is when you start losing your tissues, right? So breakdown of food, and when I say food, I mean here by food I mean basically glucose, but fat can also be considered. Now during this breakdown, you may or may not require oxygen, like we require oxygen to break down our food. So in the presence of oxygen, if breakdown is taking place, the process is called aerobic respiration. The word comes from air meaning oxygen here. And anaerobic, an means no, aerobic means air. So this is devoid of oxygen. No oxygen is used in this breakdown of food. Both liberate energy, but obviously aerobic process liberates much more amount of energy. Okay, we'll go into the details later. Next process, transportation. So transportation is the process by which we transport substances from one place of the body to another, one tissue to another tissue, one organ to another organ. So like in our case we have blood, in case of plants they have water, food that is transported from one place to the other. So in case of plants it's called conduction, in case of plants it's called conduction, in case of animals it is called circulation, because in case of animals usually there is a heart present. So whatever is going out of the heart, which is blood, goes to the body and then comes back to the heart. So it's a circulating process. In case of plants, it's either going from root to leaf or from leaf to different parts. It does not circulate. So this is called conduction, right? So what is transportation? It is the process of transport of what are the substances that are transported? Nutrients, waste, minerals, enzymes, hormones, etc. are transported from one part of the body to the other through circulation of body fluid. Now what is circulating? In our case it is blood. In case of plants it can be water. Okay, that is circulation or transportation. And finally we have excretion. Now what is excretion? So what is the process of excretion? It is the removal of metabolic waste. Now what is metabolism? Now metabolism is basically, it is referring to the chemical reactions taking place in a cell. Okay, so the chemical reactions that are taking place in the cell, they are known as metabolism, and metabolism can be of two types. The first one is anabolism and second one is catabolism. There are two types of reactions that take place in our cell. Think about it. Either you need to synthesize glucose or you need to break down glucose. Either you need to synthesize protein or you need to break down protein. Either you need to synthesize fat or you need to break down fat. Two things can happen, either you synthesize or you break down. So when it is a synthesis process, when you are synthesizing something, it is known as anabolism, which denotes synthesis. And if you are breaking down something, then the process is known as catabolism or breakdown process. In anabolism, small molecules combine to form a large molecule. Along with that, energy is absorbed and this product, whatever is formed, is high on energy. For example, when you are combining carbon dioxide with water to get glucose, It is anabolism, like in photosynthesis, right? So, you are combining carbon dioxide and water, which are smaller molecules, to form a large molecule which is carbohydrate, which is glucose. You call this anabolism. And the reverse, that is when you are breaking down a large molecule into several small molecules, you call that catabolism. What is catabolism? An example, when you are breaking down glucose C6H12O6 into water and carbon dioxide during respiration, that is known as catabolism. So, catabolism is a breakdown, and of course in catabolism during catabolism energy is released. In anabolism energy is absorbed. Like in photosynthesis you need to give sunlight to produce carbohydrate. In respiration energy is released after the breakdown. Okay, this is like combination and decomposition reaction. Yes. So here anabolism, catabolism, these are the two processes. Okay, one more thing, in case of anabolism, weight, which is dry weight, increases. So if my body is synthesizing carbohydrate, protein, fat and storing it in my body weight will increase, right? On the other hand, if I have carbohydrate in my body, if I break it down into water and carbon dioxide, release the carbon dioxide, release the water, obviously my body weight will decrease. So in case of catabolism, dry weight decreases. Okay. Now the question is, what is dry weight? Some of you are asking, what is dry weight? If I weigh myself now, let's say I am 100 kilos, right? You know that 90% of a cell is water. So almost 60 to 70% of the volume of my weight is water. So if I remove that water and weigh the solid part of my body, which is made up of protein, carbohydrate, fat, vitamin, mineral, that is dry weight. Okay. Now if I drink a glass of water right now and weigh myself, I will see I am 100 grams more because I have had water. That is not my dry weight. Okay, but of course you cannot take the dry weight of a person when he or she is living. So if you want to take my dry weight, you have to burn me into ashes, take the weight of those ashes. Don't do that. So let us come back to anabolism and catabolism. So these are, I'll show you all the slides in a little while, and the slides will all be uploaded in the notes section today itself. So don't worry, you do not have to keep the screenshots because we will be uploading it in the notes part. Ma'am, will the dry weight keep changing? Yes, the dry weight can keep changing depending on what you are eating, how much food is being stored, how much is being broken down. Is respiration more than, is anabolism more in your body than catabolism? Depends. Like when you are dieting, your dry weight decreases obviously, right? If you are overeating, your dry weight will increase because food will get stored as fat. Alright, so this is excretion. So these are the life processes. Again, coming back to the life processes, just an overall view. Nutrition is the process by which an organism procures nutrients from the environment in the form of food, or to manufacture food is called nutrition. Transportation is the process of transport of nutrients, waste, minerals, enzymes, hormones, etc. from one part of the body to another through circulating body fluid. Respiration is the process of breakdown of food to obtain energy. It can be aerobic or anaerobic. And excretion is the process of elimination of toxic metabolic waste from the body. So if you do not write metabolic waste, that is wastes that are formed after metabolic reaction, for excretion you will not get full marks. Okay. So you know, this is a very common question that is asked. Giving out of fecal matter, that is undigested food, is not excretion. Passing of stool or passing of feces is not excretion, but passing of urine is excretion. Why? Because urine contains metabolic wastes, and your stool or your feces contains undigested waste on which no reaction has taken place. Forget about anabolism, catabolism. No reaction has taken place. That is why it was undigested. Okay. So giving out of fecal matter is not excretion. Giving out of urine is your excretory product. Okay. So these are all life processes, and what are life processes? They are basic processes needed by living organisms to maintain their life. Reproduction is not a life process. And with that we entered into the chapter on photosynthesis. For ICSE students, whatever I have taught you till now, take it as an introduction. For CBSE students, that part is very much there in your book, and now we start with the next part, which is photosynthesis. So today we start with, I still have some time. So let us start with autotrophic nutrition. So as we just mentioned that certain organisms can prepare their own food. So they can take simple substances from outside like carbon dioxide, water, sunlight, and they can make it into a complex matter like carbohydrate. And this process is known as photosynthesis, which is carried out by plants. Then there are certain bacteria which can carry out photosynthesis, or there is another method of autotrophic nutrition which is known as chemosynthesis. So autotrophic nutrition is basically where they use simple food materials obtained from the inorganic sources, that is inorganic meaning carbon dioxide, water, these are inorganic present outside, and in the form of carbon dioxide and water. These organisms, the autotrophs, include green plants and some bacteria. Carbon and energy requirements of the autotrophs in organisms are fulfilled by photosynthesis. So whenever a plant is in need of carbon in the body, like glucose in the body, they take carbon dioxide from the air, convert it into glucose, and they use it as food, and that process is known as photosynthesis. So how do we define photosynthesis? Let me first come to the definition of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is a photochemical. Let's take these words one by one. What is the meaning of photochemical? Photo means light, chemical means a chemical reaction. So it is basically a chemical reaction taking place in the, can you see it, in the presence of light. So that is why it is called photochemical. Photosynthesis will not take place in the absence of sunlight. It is a biochemical reaction. What is the meaning of biochemical? Biochemical means that it only takes place in living cells, right? So a biochemical reaction takes place in living cells. Actually, if you can synthesize glucose with all the components, we will even give you a chloroplast. Outside the cell in a bucket, you will be given a Nobel. An open Nobel is declared for any such reaction that can happen, photosynthesis, that anybody can, perform outside a cell. This is one reaction which somehow does not take place anywhere outside the cell, even if you have all the components, everything that is required. Okay? It is an anabolic process. I have already discussed what is anabolism. That is, it is a synthesis process where a large molecule is synthesized from small molecules. It is an endergonic process. What is the meaning of endergonic? Endergonic means energy absorbing. So for this reaction, you need to give energy so that the energy is absorbed and the product is produced. So what is the source of energy here? The source of energy here is, can you tell me what is the source of energy here? What is the source of energy? Absolutely, the source of energy is sunlight, by which plants containing chlorophyll, it is a pigment which is green in color, we will talk about it. In the mesophyll tissues prepare carbohydrate type of food, glucose, in the presence of carbon dioxide from the air, water from the soil and sunlight. See, this is a definition where I have marked the important words. I have written them in block letters as well as I have marked them for you. Now when you are writing a definition, I have always told you, in ICC books there are no, in CBSE books there are no definitions, in ICC books you will find definitions. Let me tell you that those definitions are not something that you cannot change the wordings of. You can write a definition in your own words, but make sure that these technical terms are there. You cannot replace photochemical with any other word. You should not. You can. Of course, you can write it's a chemical reaction that takes place in the presence of sunlight, but the word photochemical should be there. Now, keep these technical words there and make your own definition. Arrange them and make your own sentence. That is perfectly fine. Don't try to mug up every definition and vomit it on your answer script. If you understand what it is, if you remember the important words, you will always be able to construct a sentence and write it. That much English I am sure you know, English or whichever language you are writing in. Okay. So photosynthesis therefore is a photochemical, biochemical, anabolic, endergonic. 4 adjectives: photochemical, biochemical, anabolic, endergonic process. by which plants which contain chlorophyll prepare what kind of food? Carbohydrate type of food. What do they need for that? Carbon dioxide from air, water from the soil, and they need sunlight. This process is known as photosynthesis. Alright, is the definition of photosynthesis clear? I will come to what is mesophyll tissue. That is the only part that I have not discussed. I will come to that in a while, Rohit. Is this much clear? No. Anabolic, Aditi, anabolic means that small molecules are joined to form a large molecule. In that process, energy is absorbed. But any reaction where energy is absorbed is called endergonic. So, endergonic is on the basis of if energy is absorbed or liberated. Anabolism is on the basis of if there is synthesis or breakdown. Now, coming to the photosynthetic organ or tissue, where does photosynthesis take place? It mainly takes place in the green parts, and the most green part in case of plants is this thing, leaf, right? So, photosynthesis takes place in the leaf, and if you see this is the cross section through a dicotyledonous leaf of a dicotyledonous plant. Okay, it is called dorsiventral. Dorsi meaning dorsal side, that is the upper side, ventral meaning the lower side. Now this is called a dorsiventral leaf because the upper and the lower sides, they have different shades. The upper side is green, dark green, the lower side is light green, right? If you see a mango leaf, you will be able to understand that the upper side is dark green and the lower side is light green. Okay, so if you see this leaf, then this is the epidermis. Epidermis is the outermost, this you have studied in class 9 a little bit. So epidermis is the outermost layer of cell, and in between the epidermis, this green bunch of cell, this is known as mesophyll tissue. So the green cells present in between the upper and the lower epidermis in case of leaves is known as the mesophyll tissue. And if you see the mesophyll tissue, you will see, there are two types of cells. These are elongated cells, these are round cells. So these cells which are elongated in shape, these cells are known as palisade parenchyma. These cells are known as palisade parenchyma. They are parenchymatous cells. And the round cells, these cells are known as spongy parenchyma, because you see there are space in between the round cells, as a result of which it looks porous and like a sponge. So that is why it is known as spongy parenchyma. So photosynthesis mainly takes place in these two structures, that is palisade parenchyma and spongy parenchyma, which makes up the mesophyll tissue. Both of them are green because they contain chlorophyll. Palisade parenchyma contains more chlorophyll than spongy parenchyma. That is why the upper part of the leaf is more green than the lower part. Okay, because the lower part of a dicotyledonous leaf like mango, the lower part is light green because the spongy parenchyma contains less amount of chlorophyll, and the palisade parenchyma which is present on the upper part, it contains more amount of chlorophyll, so it is darker green in color, right? So this is what mesophyll tissue is. Now coming to the photosynthetic reaction. So what happens during photosynthesis? As I have told you, during photosynthesis, carbon dioxide combines with water to form glucose, water, oxygen and water. Okay, right. So in this reaction, you need sunlight, you also need chlorophyll. These two, whenever you are writing a photosynthetic reaction, these two you have to mention, because without mentioning sunlight and chlorophyll on the arrows, this reaction will not take place. Now let us try to balance this equation. You need 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, 12 molecules of water to form 1 molecule of glucose, 6 molecules of oxygen and 6 molecules of water. Now you will not cross out this 6 molecules of water with 12 molecules of water and write 6 molecules of water. This you will not do. You have a tendency of not writing water in the product part and just making this 12 6. Now technically, chemistry wise you can do it, but we will not do it, because if you go into the complexities of photosynthetic reaction, you will see that without 12 molecules of water, this reaction will not take place. And actually 6 molecules are regenerated. It's not this, it's not that if you do not give 6 molecules of water, you just give, instead of 12 you give 6 molecules, the reaction will not take place. So you will not omit out water from the product part, you will write both. Okay, so this is the balanced equation for photosynthesis, where you will have to mention chlorophyll and sunlight, without which the action will not take place. There is a question that has been asked about the previous thing. So I am just going back here to the mesophyll tissue. What is this part? So this part, yes, is basically the vascular bundle, which consists of xylem and phloem. Alright, yeah, so this blue part is vascular bundle. Now coming back, this is therefore the photosynthetic reaction. Now where does photosynthesis occur? Inside the mesophyll tissue. So inside the mesophyll tissue, the cell organelle in which photosynthesis occurs, as you can all identify this, is the chloroplast. We have done the structure of chloroplast in details in class 9, but I will still go through it once. So if you see the structure of chloroplast, it is a double membrane bound structure. So this is known as the outer membrane, this is known as the inner membrane, and in between the two membranes, the space that is present, it is known as periplastidal space. Peri meaning periphery, because the space is present around the periphery of the plastid, and since it is present around the periphery of the plastid, that is why plastidal space. Okay. Inside you have the fluid which is known as stroma, and in the stroma you have disc shaped structures which are known as thylakoids, and these thylakoids are arranged in stacks in the form of coins which are known as grana. Actually they are known as singular granum. The grana remain connected by membranous connections which are known as stroma lamellae. Lamellae means membrane, stroma because these membranes pass through the stroma, which is the fluid, that is why stroma lamellae. And you can also find some stored starch and oil droplets. Apart from this, chloroplast has a very important thing. If you remember from class 9, it has its own DNA, just like mitochondria. It has its own DNA. It also has its own ribosomes for protein synthesis. It also has its own ribosomes for protein synthesis. Okay. Now, where does photosynthesis occur? In the chloroplast. So, in the chloroplast, photosynthesis occurs in the thylakoids, which basically means the grana, and it occurs in the stroma. So, these are the two places where the photosynthetic reactions will occur: grana or thylakoids and stroma or the fluid part. So, if you look at photosynthesis, it can be divided into two phases. The first phase, which requires light, sunlight, it is called the light phase, and the second phase, which can take place in the presence or in the absence of light. It will happen if light is there, it will happen if light is not there, that is called dark phase. So, light phase, which requires sunlight, takes place in the grana. Now, logically if you think about it, if sunlight needs to be absorbed, chlorophyll has to be present. And where is chlorophyll present? It is present in the grana. So, the light reaction which is absorbing sunlight has to take place in the grana. Okay. But the dark reaction, which does not have anything to do with sunlight, takes place in the stroma where there is no chloroplast. Right. So, light phase, here light is essential, and during this process two substances are produced, ATP and NADPH. We will talk about it in the next class. In the dark phase, now listen to this, only because it is called dark phase does not mean it takes place in darkness. It is called dark phase because it is light independent, meaning it does not depend on the presence or absence of light. It will happen if light is present or absent. However, it requires these two products, ATP and NADPH, which are coming from light phase. So, think about it. I do not require light, but I need two products for my reaction which will come from light phase. So, indirectly I am dependent on light phase, and that is why although dark phase takes place in darkness, photosynthesis only takes place in daytime and maybe some time after sunset, right? So during daytime when light phase is taking place, ATP and NADPH are formed, dark phase will also continue. After sundown, when the stored ATP and NADPH have been used up, there is no more ATP and NADPH. Although dark phase can take place in darkness, it will not take place because these two products will be exhausted. So dark phase uses ATP and NADPH to form glucose from carbon dioxide. So these are the two phases of photosynthesis. We will not go into the details of these right now. Just coming back to this life processes. So we are talking about photosynthesis. We will carry on with the details of photosynthetic reaction. I will end my class and take your questions. Before that, let me remind you that we have physics, chemistry, mathematics and biology classes for classes 8, 9 and 10 CBSE. We also have physics, chemistry, mathematics and biology classes for classes 8, 9 and 10 ICSE. We have master coding with Java classes, Python programming classes and physics and chemistry classes for Cambridge IGCSE. Please feel free to join now or in the future and do spread the word so that we can have more people with us. Thank you very much for being with me, and we will come back on Tuesday and continue with the chapter on photosynthesis. Okay, take care and have a great week ahead.